Back again, are you? Well, hello. My goal is to explore the two categories included in the discontinued operations in this pincast. Remember, we need to show the net income or loss from operations. We did that, we pulled that number out in our last example, and then we need to show the gain or the loss on the disposal of the assets of the discontinued segment. We have not yet worked that one into our example. I'm going to review for this pincast illustration 4-9 in the textbook we're using on page 186. Give you a little more detail on how they came up with the numbers. But don't worry if you don't have the book, because I'm going to also repeat the information. So let's do that now. Here's our facts. The business has income from continuing operations of $22,300,000 after they removed the discontinued amounts like we did in our last pincast. They had two sections: a net loss of operations from being in business of $4,200,000 before taxes that were removed from the total, and a gain on the sale of the assets of the discontinued segment. They sold them for $14 million. The book value was $12 million. The gain before taxes is $2 million. The timeline is they were going on normally until October 31st, when they decided to get out of this segment. And at that time, the net loss we looked at above in item number 1 was $4,200,000 before taxes, and they made the permanent decision to get out of this business. And then on December 18th, they sold the assets, and the assets were sold in the same year that the decision was made. Let's show then how this would work together. You would have income from continuing operations. They've already done the revenue, they've already done the expense, and they've already pulled out the discontinued segment in the amount of $22,350,000. I got that number right here. And then we would show our discontinued section. Your author lumps this all into one, and that's fine accounting. I'm going to show it separately so you can have something to compare it to. First comes the loss from operations of the discontinued segment, and the loss from operations is $4,200,000. The tax benefit that would have with that, because you would save money from your taxes, 40% of $4,200,000 is $1,680,000. Go ahead and stop and times that number by 40%. You'll see I'm right. That reduces your loss down to $2,520,000. So the after-tax loss on operating activities was a minus $2,520,000. So there's our first piece, loss from operations. Now the second piece, we had a gain on disposal of assets. Gain on the disposal of assets says we had proceeds, or we had a gain, we had a gain of $2 million, and we calculated that right here, gain on disposal of the assets, put that right here kind of close together, isn't it, is $2 million. And then there's a tax expense related to that gain in the amount of $800,000. So our net gain on disposal after tax is $1,200,000. So we have our two pieces done. We have a loss from operations and a gain from disposal. Those two numbers, $2,520,000 loss plus $1,200,000 to gain, netted together, added together, this number and this number, are a $1,320,000 loss for total discontinued operations. Part of it was from operations and part was from disposal of assets. If you take the $22,350,000 from continuing operation and subtract out the after-tax effect of the discontinued item, you'll see net income from this business was $21,030,000. And you're done. You can compare this to the illustration in the book where they added the loss from operations and the gain together and showed you the tax expense added together and came down with one number. You can do that. You can show it separately, or you could just add in the $1,320,000 loss at the bottom and disclose the whole thing in the notes. Everything about that, any of those three choices would be okay. There is one more consideration. Notice that we sold the assets in the same period that we discontinued the operations. What if you sold the assets after? It's entirely possible that it's going to take a while to sell the $14 million in assets that we hold. So what happens if you sell it after the year? Well, if there's a gain, you just report the gain in the year it happens, because we don't recognize gains before they take place. But what about if there's a loss on those disposals? We didn't have a loss, but what if there was? If that's the case, you would include it in the current year just like we did with estimates. The reason you would do that is you've made an irrevocable decision to get out of this. So that loss is a foregone conclusion, and it should be included. So it would be included right here. You would accrue it in. If you'd like to see an example of that, you can look in the textbook on page 187. They show an example of a loss being accrued in illustration 410. And in that one, they combine all the numbers together instead of breaking them out like I did. Not good, not bad, just another way of doing it. Well, thanks for joining me. Hope this cleared up some stuff on discontinued operations. Talk to you soon.